Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? You can. It's really nice to see you. It's been a crazy few weeks. My name is Monty Paulson. I lead the Passive House practice at RDH Building Science. I'm really happy to see you. Happy to welcome you to the Passive House Happy Hour hosted by Passive House Accelerator. This is an inclusive gathering. We welcome people from all Passive House communities, as well as everyone else who wants to create zero emissions buildings with less embodied carbon. So please turn on your cameras. We want to see you. Please turn on your microphones for a minute. We welcome to join a toast.
Here.
Cheers.
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 Okay, so I forgot.
For the 5 large disasters I missed there. Okay, now mute your mics, close the email. We have a great show. First up, a project tour by John Murrell, a board member with the Australia Passive House Association. This is the house that's got everything. You're going to love it. And then a great presentation about a historic office retrofit in Cold Spring, New York by Juhee Lee-Hartford and James Hartford of River Architects. Now, please allow me to introduce Prudence.
Hey everyone, I'm Prudence Ferreira. It's great to see you all. I lead Morrison Hirschfield's Passive House practice for our 22 offices across the US and Canada. And yeah, it's really interesting times, that's for sure. But one of the things I love about this community and about my job is collaboration. And one of the silver linings of COVID is that we've all been able to learn new tools and new ways of collaborating with each other and our clients and our project teams. And in addition to accelerating awareness, education, and adoption of Passive House in general, Passive House Accelerator in this happy hour is such a great way to build our community by allowing us to find collaborators from all over the globe. And I'm really grateful for that and just want to take a moment to appreciate the camaraderie that we've been able to build in this happy hour and with Passive House Accelerator between all of us as we share our inspirations and ideas, our experiences and challenges, our successes and innovations, independent of which Passive House standard we might implement on any given project, which country we're in, and which climate zone we're working in. So here's the collaboration.
All right.
Now, back to Monty to tell us, you have a little bit more for us on the spotlight video, or are we going to go straight to the video?
Now let's just show the video.
All right, let's jump in.
All right, here we go.
Hi, and welcome to Noonamina and a virtual tour of our wonderful home here in central Victoria, Australia. Noonamina sits on 20 acres in central Victoria, which experiences significant temperature ranges from 0 to 46, which we experienced this year. Humidity can range from 20% to 100%, and the performance of the house is just wonderful when these extremes are experienced outside. The house is constructed from a straw bale sit-up panel system, providing R values of around R9 to R10 in Australian system, and is rendered with a fly ash and lime-based render with an airtight layer on the inside face of the panels. The performance of the house provides stable temperatures between 19 and 26 degrees more than 95% of the time without any additional heating or cooling. Humidity of the home is a stable 35 to 50% relative humidity, which provides a very comfortable environment to live. With all passive houses, the need for heat recovery ventilation system is essential. To provide this comfortable and stable environment, we've had to maintain our air tightness at a high level. We have 2 dogs and have installed a dog door that provides airtight sealing and easy access for the pets. Noonamina is all electric. Our kitchen has an induction cooktop and a recirculating charcoal filtered range hood. The heat recovery ventilation system is a Zender Q350, providing exhaust and fresh air supply throughout the home. Hot water is provided by a sand and heat pump system. Thermal comfort is enhanced by ceiling fans in every room, and when required we have a separate split system air conditioning system, and we spoiled ourselves with a bionic wood fire which has been used very rarely in the last 3 years. We have installed 7.7 kilowatts of solar panels onto the home. When we talk about passive house, we see lots of numbers, lots of data and lots of questions. The real benefit is when you walk in the door, you experience that thermal comfort, warm, calm, healthy environment. It's just terrific.
All right. Thank you, John, for that. It's exciting to see passive house kind of start to take off in Australia, and thanks for sharing your project. It's really, really cool. So we're going to go into breakout rooms now, and as is our tradition, we'll start with a brief breakout room session here of about 3 minutes. And this is a chance to do rapid fire introductions, get to know one another. Here we go. I'll see you in a little bit. We're going to dive into announcements. I hope that image is clear enough to read this time. We've got some great announcements, some really important ones, and I want to start by saying thank you to Partel for becoming a patron sponsor. Partel is a provider of membranes and tapes and adhesives for passive house and other high performance building projects. They also have a thermal break product, and they are our newest, they've joined us as our newest patron sponsor. So thank you to Partel. We have a number of ongoing passive house gatherings, and I've listed them there for you. You can see from Passive House Canada, from NAPHN, from Fine Home Building, from Dave Cooper, and from Mark Wiley. So please check those out, and I'll share all this in the chat. The FIAS Certified Passive House Builder Training is just around the corner. It starts on August 31st and runs through September 11th. And that link will get you to the registration page for that. PHI is having its Passive House Fundamentals course. It's offering a discounted rate, so €95 for this pretty thorough Passive House Fundamentals primer. It's an online course that the registration gets you access for 6 months. You need to purchase that by October 8th, and that €95 can then apply as credit toward registration for the 24th International Passive House Conference that begins on December 20th. So if you want information about that, the URL is there, and I'll share this in chat as I promised. Finally, we have been working on simplifying the registration process for this call, for the happy hour. It's kind of confusing with the way that Zoom does kind of the registration gateway. So we're updating that, and I will be sending out an email to everyone who's registered later this week. But if you want to get a jump start, there is going to be this one link that you see there, passivehouseaccelerator.zoom.us, with all the gobbledygook after it. So if you'd like, you can save that and put it into your calendar. And if you want to, you can download that calendar item for Google Calendar or for Outlook Calendar. And this meeting will be in your calendar on into the future with the link. So it's a way to make this a simpler process and avoid the last minute kind of weird registration thing that a lot of people feel like are presented.
For those of you who've re-registered 20 times.
Exactly. So we're gonna end that misery. And finally, I want to thank our sponsors that make all of the work that Passive House Accelerator does possible. So our founding sponsors are Baxtingui Architects, Mitsubishi Electric, RDH Building Science, Stow Corp, and Zola Windows. Our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, and our patron sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Morrison Hershfield, and now Partel.
Woohoo.
And with that, I will.
Zach, you want to leave
hand it
that
off.
slide?
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
one more
Sure.
sec?
Yep.
Just two things quickly. One, can you paste that long URL into the chat for everybody?
Yeah,
right?
I'm gonna,
So
everything here
it-
I'll paste and share.
It's, very few of us can type that task. Hey, the other thing I just want to note was, 10 years ago when I started in this, there were no passive house trainings. There were no exam prep courses. There were no certifiers in North America. Many of us, our very first projects didn't certify because there's just too much we didn't know. Bronwyn had to fly up from California to Vancouver to give the exams, like the first three of us who took the passive house exam. I mean, it was just barely getting going. And we've hit a point now where you can learn more than you'll ever need to know about passive house without changing out of your pajamas. You can just log into these things over the course of these next few months and soak in. It's like living under a waterfall, the amount of passive house education and information that's available. And so, if you don't have anything else to do for the next year and you're stuck inside, I don't think you could do much better than becoming a certified passive house consultant or designer or tradesperson or whatever makes sense for you. It's just a great way to kind of build skill for what we're going to need to do as we come out of this era.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Monty. I'm also going to, in addition to all this information in chat, I'm going to also share subscription information for our new podcast, the Passive House Podcast, and our YouTube channel and social media stuff. So there are all sorts of ways to access great information. So I think now I'm going to hand it off. Thanks.
Great. Prudence.
All right. So speaking of opportunities to educate ourselves and influx of information, even as we're in lockdown, in the past, there used to be plenty of debate about whether it was better for the climate to demolish an existing inefficient building or build a high performance replacement. And in recent years, can people mute themselves? Someone's not muted. And we've got some jostling happening. Thanks, guys. Anyway, in recent years, we've learned that due to the amount of carbon emitted during the construction of new buildings, that decision to demolish has to be really carefully evaluated, because depending on the building type and the construction type, an estimated low of 35, and that's pretty low, and a high of 70% of a new building's life cycle carbon emissions are actually emitted before the building is even opened. So while there are many policies that are being put in place to reduce embodied carbon emissions of new construction, even with like an aggressive 40% reduction like Vancouver is planning for embodied emissions of new construction, new buildings can still have higher combined embodied and operational CO2 equivalent emissions than a deep energy retrofit in an existing building to interfit, or even more aggressively to FIAS Plus core levels of performance, or even better to PHI Classic or FIAS Plus 2018 if we can get there. So tonight, I'm really excited to introduce one of the architect power couples of Passive House, who is working on a historic retrofit. And I was lucky enough to be a CPHC instructor to both of them, and just so proud to see all they've accomplished since I met them both in New York City years ago at their Passive House trainings, which were generously supported by our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA. And I'm just so happy to introduce Juhee Lee-Hartford. She's the managing and founding partner of River Architects. And she's an advocate of progressive contemporary architecture with respect for the past. Her motto is revel in architecture and pursue greater than life projects. And her favorite house in the book is the Berenstein Bears Treehouse. Her husband, James Hartford, joined up with her, became a part of River Architects in May 2005, and he brought to the practice his knowledge of building envelope and construction experience. He drives the firm beyond the realm of architecture to be a source of big, bold ideas in their community. And his most memorable Lego creation is Brunelleschi's Duomo. Right on. The project they're going to share, as I mentioned, it's an historic retrofit. They went to FIAS Plus 2015 criteria in terms of performance. And it's actually the new office of their practice. So they were really intimately involved every step of the way. And though it is a small building at only 1,500 square feet or so, the types of issues and challenges they dealt with are similar to the ones we all are going to be dealing with as we tackle the challenge of decarbonizing our existing building stock. We're all being called to become better building scientists and more innovative thinkers in terms of how to create the optimal balance between historic preservation and energy conservation, embodied carbon and operational carbon emission reductions. So even if you only work on large buildings, pay heed because they're really important lessons to be learned at a smaller scale. Thank you so much both for joining us tonight.
Great. Glad
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Thank you. Maybe I should say one thing. Maybe I should tell you how we got into Passive House. This is a story that James had to remind me recently. What was it, back in 2008 or so, right? When we were just getting into sustainable architecture, James was invited to give a lecture on sustainability or sustainable architecture. And I was home with, I was a new mother, sleep deprived, and I told James, whatever you do, don't bullshit. And so James dug deeper and found Passive House, and he felt that you can't really bullshit in Passive House.
So this is our project. This is this is where we spend most of our days. We don't live here, but this is our studio. We have workspace for 10 people, dual monitors, and it's a tiny little building at 10,097 square feet. So it's
the conditioned space, yeah.
1,097 square feet. So it's little, and it was.
And gross square foot, Prudence is right. It was about 1,500 square feet if we count all the thickness of the insulation.
Yeah. Okay. So.
All right. Scrolling page down. So this is as our front entry, and this is what we bought.
Well, we bought what we could afford, which is this sad little structure on Main Street in a historic district. So we're in the Hudson Valley of New York, and it's a beautiful little town. It's 1 square mile. It's about 2,000 people, but we're an hour and 10 minutes from north of New York City on the train line, and pretty much the entire village is a National Historic District. So.
And our next door neighbor is gas station, and I didn't want to buy next door to gas station, but James convinced me that in 10 years that it won't be. So, and so maybe you can just run through a quick proposal that we made because it's an historic district.
Yeah. So as in the historic district, we had some pushback that to do a deep energy retrofit to the building envelope. We had part of the board, the historic review board, who was pushing to keep the building as it was, even the split old rotten siding. But we knew there were people on the board who recognized that this is their best shot at saving this building because anybody else would have torn that little thing down. So
the certain points to make here, they of course wanted us to preserve the stone walls and the siding, novelty siding. So we negotiated on replacing it with new, but same profile. They had no purview on color, so we got away with that. They weren't thrilled about the deep windows, window wells, or the big giant overhang of the insulated top volume. We mitigated that as best as we could. We proposed to lift the building off the ground. So if we, you see the original building was sinking to the ground. So we proposed to raise it for multiple reasons. One is to thermally break, to give a higher ceiling in the basement, and to get it out of the termite zone. So, and we also negotiated on the door and window heights, so on and so forth. And the light well, you want to talk about the light well?
Yeah, so we added that light well to bring in, to give us big high ceiling windows into this space so it can really bring in natural daylight. And here's the it's the only historic image that we could actually get of this house, strangely, but or this building. But here it is in the context of probably 1930, maybe 1920. And you know, you can see the outline of our building here. But this was once actually a lace factory, and now that's been torn down for the gas station and now a much wider roadway. Yeah, it's wrong. And so the strategy that we had was to, you know, kind of classic follow the lines around, making the exterior sheathing layer of the existing building, the air tightness layer, over insulating for that. And then in the basement, we'd flip that. The original goal was to retain the original stone walls and then insulate to the inside. So a simple plan. Here's the concept that I sketched up just, you know, one night when I couldn't sleep. And so the simple idea was to leave the existing stone walls, lift the building up and extend the stonework up with a thermal break and foam glass so that we can make continuity for thermal and air sealing.
And in the back of my mind, I'm always wondering, how is that new and old stone wall going to look, you know, one against another?
And so here you see the original framing. We chose to expose it for the roof, and the skip sheathing from the old wood cedar shingles that were on it. Miraculously, this horseshoe shop did not burn down. It just had a big open hearth in the center and had a forge in the center, and then had 2 roof vents, which we actually replaced with light tubes. And so the original sketch is here, you know, just trimming off the rafter tails and putting new wall sheathing here, and then wrapping the whole thing with an air tightness layer. Then recreating to the outside those rafter tails and just kind of giving it a puffed up look. And we came up with a pretty good, this is a windows section in the basement plan detail, where we introduced foam glass actually around the perimeter like that, so that we were able to get over insulation on the frame, and then just did a little stucco wash there to make it blend into the stonework. And so here it is, you know, just extending up the stonework, nice and easy. Same idea with the foam glass wrapping all the way around. But then we realized that the stone foundations had to go. So we stuck with the same plan, but then moved the framing out, because the goal was to support the original structure. So we moved the plane of the masonry out so that we're bringing the stonework out, so that it reduced the amount of overhang there. And we reclad we created a shelf in the masonry to reclad with reclaimed stone from the original foundation, which is the glacial till, you know, throughout the Hudson Valley here. And so solar, you know, the typical energy loads for an office, and, you know, even with PV, we weren't able to meet our primary energy demands. And, you know, it has a lot to do with the small building penalty, which if we added just 300 square feet of, you know, of loft space, we would have actually been hit passing. So I'm going to just kind of cruise past these. We found that that the heating loads and the cooling loads are actually not very accurate as modeled. We have no problem heating the building. We do require more cooling than the model suggests. And if we were to shift the building, you know, you can see here, if we just added a little bit of square footage, we would be passing. And so this is just a kind of a study of various projects that we've done, you know, floor area ratios. And then back to the energy modeling, once we added a preconditioning loop in the Comfofon for the Zender, we actually brought it into passing. So we just basically have ground temperature water in contact with the soil under the insulation of the basement floor, and that gives us all the kind of tempering that we need to make our primary energy pass. And so then the work begins. Here we are tearing off this little shed addition off the back, which we end up recreating to create the stairwell. As we did that demo, we realized that the rubble foundation was just really bad to begin with, but just really eroded. There's no mortar left. And as we dug further, we discovered gasoline from the gas station. So we had subsoil contamination. So we braced the building. Originally we had a moving company lift the building. So then since it was already up in the air, we decided to have them basically skid it into the backyard there. And there's our fantastic foundation. And we had that tank, we removed that. But once we removed all this rubble, we were able to gain back quite a lot of space actually on the interior.
And taking a pause, we were saying, you know, the bright side of the thing is that good thing that we were doing, we were already committed to extensive renovation. I said, can you imagine, you know, we were just laymen and just bought into the office and we renovated the heck out of the interior and moved in. What would have, you know, what we had then, you know, discovering afterwards and moving out again, you know, so we were saying, thank God we found out, you know, before.
Yeah, well, and then particularly about the soil contamination from the gasoline. It was a full dump truck of gasoline contaminated soil from an old leak. So that would have been our interior space that we, you know, if people were just doing a good enough building, they would have been, you know, actually capturing more of that fumes inside. So, so here we are with the foundations now recreated and the building being skidded back in. You can see our foam glass and then our vapor barrier kind of flopped over. But you know, the simple plan of just setting the building back down is made much more complex by this system of steel I-beams that we need to pull out, the needle beams. So we, you know, had to kind of repair, but you know, we did pretty well. So we used reclaimed EPS foam insulation for the basement, and we used actually the final layer of that buildup to the inside of the vapor barrier to protect the vapor barrier from all the work and the sharp edges of the welded wire. And so, you know, that's some leftovers from it, but you can see our vapor barrier just waiting to be extended up and then sealed to what's flopped up there above the foam glass. So you can see that the foam glass marching all the way around there. And that's our source for grain insulation. You can come back to that. And so at the end, we basically came back with a timber frame that we reclad. And so we reskinned the walls. We used the same plywood that was overlaid on top of the original skip sheathing, and then wrapped it with this 3M peel and stick film, which was really great.
Friends have said that we should have built a couple of bleachers across the street so that the neighbors can sit there and watch us, because it was so entertaining for the neighbors.
So then we built up, you know, we have 14-inch Larson trusses on the walls. We made a decision to expose the timber frame on the inside. So what was originally 10-inch Larson trusses, we then boosted up to 14 inches so that we can get all that extra R value outside and meet our energy model. We have 16-inch Larson trusses across the roof. And then you can see here where we've recreated in hemlock, which is the original species, the rafter extensions. And so this is our air test, our air tightness testing results. We did actually phenomenally well. So 0.24, actually in the final average ACH 50 at 0.2. So we were far exceeded what we were supposed to hit. CFM 50 for the shell, 0.0138. So really, you know, a very, very tight building.
Yeah.
It's about the equivalent of half of a credit card in surface area. And so, you know, people are like, you're crazy for all that you've done. But when we sat back and looked at the space that we've created for ourselves, we realized we weren't so crazy. It might have been a labor of love, but we have marmoleum floors, you know, linoleum, true linoleum floors upstairs, and the guys who were installing it, it was a bitter cold day, and gave Juhee very strict instructions to.
Right, and when he came, well, before he came, he said, I need real heat. I need my material to acclimate to the temperature. And he came and I gave him a tiny little space heater to plug in. He
Those
got
little,
so mad
tiny
at
little
me.
quartz ones this big.
And he was so mad. He said, I told you I need real heat. And then about noon, he had to unplug and he had to open the doors.
He was all sweaty.
And he said, I've never seen anything like this.
So, and so this is what us moved in, you know, we kind of always have party lights because we haven't been, we just haven't gone on to actually buy the final lights, but it's a really great space and we use it for everything. You know, and so this is the new addition, that little shed addition that we tore off. We put our stairwell and our mechanical system. There's this ledge that was created, you know, in the transition at the foundation that we took advantage and made into a shelf, as well as our whole mechanical system.
So this is our entire mechanical system, and then there's a tiny on-demand hot water heater downstairs in our kitchen broom closet, which we hardly use.
Yeah, we turned it off mostly. So here's a solar tube, and the amount of light that it throws down is just incredible. But then, you know, so this is our system on display. So a tiny little 9,000 kBtu heat pump, and then our Comfo fond here, and our Zender 350. And we use the larger Zender. We could have gone smaller, but Comfo fond is only you know, adaptable to the 350 or the 550.
And that's only one unit that we use for both floors.
So, and then, you know, here's the reclaimed barn door that was on the side of the building. I just welded that up the very first day of the COVID shutdown, actually, and cut the top of my finger off, actually, doing it. And a reclaimed historic window from a local project that, you know, I shut, you know, if we have two different conversations, we can kind of shut it down and control noise. And some, you know, it's kind of our outfit there. And we, you know, downstairs is decidedly more modern and clean. You know, open tread stairs that really bring that natural light down. You can see that, and it's dog friendly. And, you know, so just kind of what's out there, you know, you know, there's some decent federal and state incentives.
We were able to pursue a couple of them. Of course, the solar panel incentives was the easy one. The SBA loan for MWBE businesses, that's what we had pursued. And the paperwork for that was so overwhelming that we couldn't pursue any other incentives. So after the fact, we learned that there's actually a technical preservation services incentives, tax incentives for restoring historic buildings. We didn't get to capture that, but
yeah, we were running blind.
Yeah, but yeah. So, and lessons learned. You want to go for?
Yeah, well, it was just never assume. We learned so many things on the fly, and we had to be flexible. I mean, of course, any project has just a dizzying amount of variability, but this was just an insane thing to think, okay, well, what more could we find after the gasoline? Dug up another tank in the backyard. Ended up just being a cistern, but it's just everything comes at you and then more.
And one of frustrating moment was when we had one of our guys draw the window details, and he was in the field and didn't follow his own detail. That was very frustrating. And yes, so small building penalty, that we had to deal with that. And as James had mentioned, it's easy to draw blue and red lines on paper, but it was definitely hard to execute in the field. In this case, we had used HRV to pass the Woofy passive, but we realized that it's really not ideal for our climate zone. We really should have installed ERV instead of HRV. and we were definitely thrown off by the cooling and heating and cooling loads in the Woofy model. In real life, we felt that it was reverse, and the external shades.
And probably one thing is, we do a lot on calculations on usage patterns, and the fact is that you make such a good building that your usage patterns are completely different because you spend so much more time in the space because you love it. We have parties here.
And
so you're all welcome.
And this is not lessons learned, but a couple of things that we've added to our practice to top it off is that we have organic gardens in our backyard. Our contractor friend, who also has a farm, helped us get some organic soil.
Yeah.
We also participated in Green Business Partnership, where they make you go through the hoopla to buy green office products, to have all kinds of green measures. I can't think of it all off the top of my head. We also bought electric car recently.
So our studio is certified Source Net Zero, and still maintaining that even with the car that we're charging. So it's really great to walk the walk.
That was fantastic, guys.
You
Thank
do
so
realize
much.
we're all sitting here thinking we want to see the finger now.
I got it. Yeah, there I was in the hospital, the first time, you walk in and everything's like COVID, shut down, and there are pre-screened tents out there, and here I am just I can't believe I so stupidly cut my thumb. So,
and
anyway,
the irony is I felt terribly guilty because I think it was my nagging that had James make the accident. And of course, after I dropped him off at emergency room, Adam Cohen and I happened to be texting each other because of something else. And Adam Cohen's wife was in emergency room. I said, well, I think James had to go to emergency out of empathy because, he cut his finger to go to the emergency room.
There's a couple of people online here that I want to just give shout outs to, like Jay Woodworth from SIGA. SIGA has been such a great partner in this. Dusan Mayor is here from Slovakia, Detva Slovakia in the house, Macro and Windows, and his importer Tomáš Kočiš of Yarrow Windows. Just fantastic people we got to work with. I am absolutely forgetting people, and do not be offended. 475 provided our light tubes, and were great for follow-up when the packaging from Europe was deficient, and we ended up getting these glass domes that arrived smashed, and they replaced it for us. So I mean, honestly, everybody lives up to the whole, like Prudence was saying, what a fantastic group, and to have such solid people from around the world who are helping you pull this together. We managed to do this in spite of needing to seek variances, having to purchase our front yard from, because the setback was just crazy. And then the Historic Review Board, the whole thing, we managed to get the entire process done within 1 year, which from including approvals to move in substantial completion. So it was pedal to the metal. I mean, it was very hard to run an architecture office while you're building it, but we managed.
And I should also say thank you publicly to Dusan, because Dusan and Tomáš from Yarrow, they came here in person several times to help set us the tap home system. We have a whole set of slides for that after our discussion on the controls and smart system that we have set up here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both very much. It's such a great example of a retrofit, and I really think retrofits are going to be the front of our conversation for the next decade or so. Sean, have you been keeping track? You have some questions queued up?
I have. We've got lots of John and Jeff in the list here, so if you haven't asked a question, please jump in. Love to hear from newbies as well as some other people that haven't asked questions. So I'm actually going to start off with the question because I want to know more about the foam glass, of where were you able to get it from, because it's always a hot product, and it's, again, very interesting. So I'll start with foam glass, and then we have Andrew, and then a P, and then we've got Harvey and Susan. So let's get started. Tell us about the foam glass you used.
Yeah, so foam glass, we love it, and it has become a rare commodity. We got it just before basically they stopped distributing it in North America, and then we had cutoffs that we were able to share with other projects that we had in the works, but yeah, unfortunately, that's just not available readily. We're told that you can still special order it, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, interesting stuff. It'll come back. So glad you guys got it. And if those that were looking for food, I'm sitting here with Peter, and he's got nice cheese. So hopefully this is making you hungry, because I'm ready to dive into it. Andrew, you had one of the first questions. If not, we'll go to P. Malaner from Oshawa.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry. This is
No
Andrew.
worries.
I was
Andrew, no, all good.
sorry, I was on mute. Hi, James. Andrew Chintz here. I was just curious. I missed a little bit of the beginning, but I'm just curious how you were able to do so many changes to the exterior as a being a historic building, and whether you had to get that all approved through the state, the SHPO, and did you go through a normal process that you would have with any historic building? I mean,
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think largely we're used to seeing retrofits of masonry structures, so it's usually interior, right? This being wood frame in a very small building, we weren't going to give up an inch, at least on the main floor. So we really pushed hard to insulate to the outside, and they realized that really at this tiny little footprint, we couldn't give up anything and still make it worthwhile. And the fact that the siding was shot, helped a lot. It was split, and everything was circa about 1840. So, cut nails and, everything is just ready to go. But so we have, we've been in this community for a long time. We've been working with the Historic District Board for a long time. And that doesn't mean it makes it easier, but at least you have a rapport, and we've got a body of work that we can point to, including our own house just a block away. So there's a lot that they appreciate. They also want to appear to be progressive. So having the opportunity to say, look, this is about, we're saving an old structure and bringing it up into the future so that we're future-proofing something instead of throwing it away. And that helped a lot too.
And the stone wall, when the stone wall had to come down, we forgot to notify them, and they tried to shut us down.
Yeah.
And we said, I'm sorry, we gotta keep going. We lost so much time. The only department that we did not hit in this tiny village, it was recreational department. So we said, I'm sorry, we just have to keep going.
Yeah, we actually, they tried to, the building inspector called to say that he was told to issue a stop work order, and I told him, we don't accept that. You're gonna have to send the county sheriff. So.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next question. Thanks, Andrew. P. Malaner from Oshawa. Hopefully I said your name correctly. Are you there?
No,
Thank you.
Molinar. Molinar.
Again, next time I'm in Oshawa, you can hit me. So
that's okay. It's close. Very Dutch. Yeah. How extensive were the measures you had to take for the gasoline abatement? Would you dig out how much cubic yardage of soil did you have to get cleaned?
That was a nightmare, and that was our biggest obstacle. It cost us 3 months of construction schedule. The DEC, the state agency, is supposed to be really on top of it, and honestly, they are there to enable a gas station. And so I had dug through every single record there, because there was a spill in the leaking tank, and back in the 90s next door. They had replaced the tank. They had removed their soil on that side. They had tested for soil gas on this side. And I read all the reports. It came up clean. And as soon as we hit ground, we just, I got a call one morning from the excavator to say, come on over. And I smelled it a block away. It smelled like an accident, honestly.
They said, well, it's been there more than 10 years, so it's okay. You can keep it if you like.
Yeah, we can keep it.
No, but you did the right thing.
Yeah, so we dug it out, and what ended up happening is, we don't have a picture of it, but there's a small retaining wall between our property and that. It ended up, when you excavate it down 10 feet, it becomes a very dangerous, situation. So we
Yes.
had to undermine that retaining wall essentially to get all the soil out, and then prop it up. And then once we got everything back again, we have a handicap ramp that comes around that side of the building to get to the back. And so in order to build that, we actually had to do techno metal posts to drive those down. So helical piles that we ended up using for all our foundations. And honestly, it's for wood framing here. And it's a fantastic thing that we actually are using otherwise.
Yeah, it's a real good method, the helical pile, and then to insert them underneath the house and other structure.
Yeah.
No, it's a useful tool.
Very good. Yeah.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great stuff. John Sneal, I think I asked your question, but do you have any other questions? If not, we'll move over to Harvey.
I think mine just got answered. I had three questions. One was, what was the most surprising expense during the construction? So I think you just hit on it with your, I'm assuming the gas, unless there's a second one. And not that I'm prying, I was just wondering where you guys were dollars per square foot. And then finally, it sounds like the house is so tight when you and you say you have parties there, etc. Are you opening up a lot of windows, and how are you clearing the air at that point? And thank you, and a great project. And I love to see the cribs as you were moving the building up and changing everything over. That was fabulous to see.
Yeah, and that's a lot of fun. We actually set up a time-lapse video camera for that, and it's just the coolest thing to watch it. And then the stoplights going at the corner of but it's so much fun to document, and we did a lot. But cost per square foot, it was expensive. No,
it was around 300. I think it was around $300 per square foot.
So better than yes. So it was painful, but
and the foundation was the other surprise. Yeah, the gas leak and the foundation.
Right.
Yeah. It was, but we enjoy it. We enjoy it every time we come in.
And so when you have a fair amount of people other than you two, are you having to open up windows or doors or is it
right,
insulated?
Well, the ERV definitely keeps up. It just it ramps way down to almost nothing, and then it's also kind of oversized for our building, so the ERV has no problem. Heating and cooling, HRV, right? It can get hot in here, of course, with a lot of people in here. But the AC keeps up. Usually, it's like Halloween is a really big thing here, and the parade, the little village parade, kicks off across the street, and we usually open the doors and actually have kegs in the backyard too. So, so doors are open mostly.
Yeah. So we haven't had a big major event when it was too hot. Maybe the Chamber of Commerce when they were here. It was
but it's usually the doors are open and everything's great. It's fun.
Yeah. Now
thank you so much. Yeah. Fabulous approach the way you did everything.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you guys have a chance in the chat, you got huge praise for what you've done.
Oh,
so we've got Harvey coming up, and then Susan on deck, and then also Jeff Roden right after that in the queue. So Harvey from Toronto, you there?
I just did it, so it's the next one up. Oh. Sorry, Shane.
No, sorry. And then we skipped over John and Susan. You there?
Yeah.
Sorry, Harvey.
Sure. Hi. It's great project again. Thanks so much. I'm not sure. I think my question was about the air exchanges. That was so interesting. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what was so unique. I mean, I just asked, have you got absolutely no penetrations or what? Can you talk some more about how you did that?
Yeah. Just a lot of me going around with my sweaty palms and just feeling for things. We did actually the very first one. It was I bought a smoke machine from a party supply house, and we pressurized the building, and I was just seeing the smoke just kind of sitting in the air and it wasn't moving, and I was like, there's something weird here. I went outside, I'm looking around, I'm like, I couldn't see any smoke anywhere. I'm like, there's something wrong here, and it actually was, no, it's all right. So, but but it's it's lessons learned. I mean, that would be a great slide to put up. We had electricians come through afterwards and informed everyone, if you drill something, let me know, I'll go after you and I'll tape it. Oh yeah, we got it. So they did all their work, and then I'm like thinking, well, that's funny. They'd never asked me to tape anything. And I said, so I went around and I started looking, and I'm like, well, how about that hole there? And it's like, oh, it's just a small hole. You know? There's a lot of small holes. And so I ended up, you know, doing little probes all over through the SIGA before the insulation was put in. And I went back through it. I mean, I was just super diligent, and I caught pretty much most of them. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for that. Really great project. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great stuff. Jeff Roden.
Yeah, I was really intrigued. First of all, it looks like a beautiful space. I'd love to work there every day myself.
Thanks.
Thank you.
But I was interested about your choice on Larson Truss for your walls and roof assemblies. I'm wondering how you got there and where you heard about it, and if you've used it before. And because I've used it once, but that was it.
Do you want the Larson Truss, we've been using Larson Trusses a lot for all our work, and for our wood frame work. And it's just something we've been dialing in. Our very first passive house was also a retrofit. We've done several of them now. So our first retrofit with the contractor field built them. And it was really onerous. And when we factored in the time that it took for him to do it, there was really no savings. So we just, you know, went with buying the I-joists. And they're, you know, they're perfect, and they're, and they're strong. There's no guessing about it. And another nice thing about using the I-joists as the Larson trusses is that it really helps compartmentalize for doing the dense packed cellulose, because if it's all wide open, you just can't get the pressurization to get it dense.
One thing that I wish you could have done differently is to insulate from, what's the word, blow the cellulose in from the inside, if we could. It's a tricky one because, you know, we have this beautiful SIGA wrap, and then we had to go poke holes, multiple holes to blow in cellulose, and then we're taping each hole multiple times, and I'm hoping that they will, you know, stay put together with all the dust. So yes, that was one surprise for me to see how our weather barrier was poked many times for the insulation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing is that my daughter's boyfriend and parents live in Cold Spring, so I know where you are.
Oh, fantastic.
Great.
Well, Jeff, I think maybe 2021 we'll all be there for Halloween, and we can all bring our smoke machines and have a big party, because I think that's one hidden secret with all the energy modelers and again, blower door tests is we all have a smoke machine that we've, you know, bought from a party supply store. So
yeah,
and
exactly.
I don't know for everyone else, I was just at a job site yesterday, and they actually come now with lights. It comes either with a red light or blue light, and so when you're walking around, it looks like you've got a Star Wars gun on the newer fog machine. So
at RDH, we have the industrial movie set versions. There's a lot of smoke. It's really fun.
So John, you can also get the handheld dinosaurs, which are really good. It acts like a smoke pen, but it's handheld, so you can go around and you can actually check really carefully.
Oh, great. That sounds really handy.
You go to a school supply store for that one.
yeah, so smoke machines and thermal imaging camera, those are the party tricks to bring, especially for Halloween. Thanks, Jeff. I got another Jeff in the queue here, Jeff, and on your name tag I wrote LDR, so hopefully, Jeffrey, you know who that is. And if not,
I am here.
There we go. Good, Jeff. Sorry, I wrote something down for you, but go ahead. You got a couple questions. Go ahead.
James, I wanted to say hello, neighbor. My wife's actually the librarian for the school there in Cold Spring for Haldane.
Oh, wow.
You got kids in the school system there?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, my wife probably knows them.
Did they bring their books back?
Well, yeah, actually, they're trying to stack them at the front door, so yeah, that's good. So I have a couple of questions from you guys. This is a FIAS retrofit certified?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I was FIAS for retrofit because we decided to go PHI because we decided we're going to do mostly retrofit. My partner and I.
Well, we've, you know, since I trained under FIAS, it just made sense. And while most of the time we've had no problem meeting the air tightness for our retrofit projects. Our very first one, we got it down to just under the 1 ACH. So Theus gave us basically an exception for that because, you know, essentially they're like, you're at Enerfit, and it was, you know, Theus and PHI didn't quite diverge that much at that time. So it was close enough, and we got the certificate. And that one is also net positive too. So, or net zero at least.
Do you do mostly retrofit stuff?
We've done probably 5 of them, I guess, off the top of my head. And most of our stuff is new construction now, but one of them that was actually, we had a client who insisted on that we work with a modular company. And she really wanted the full finished modular. So like, you know, so we went with a local modular company and had 6 boxes delivered to the site, and then essentially had those craned and erected into place. And then we did the deep energy retrofit of that. So we hung Larson dresses on the outside of that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right around the corner here. So, you know, so.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
How was Phillipstown working with this on this?
Well, it's a village of Cold Springs, its own jurisdiction. And it was.
Cold Spring was Phillipstown, no?
We're in Phillipstown, but it's as a village, it's got its own local.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So, but, you know, like we were saying, it's, you know, a lot of oversight with, you know, zoning, planning, historic review board, the water department, and as Juhee said, everything but parks and recreation.
A couple more questions real quick. The railings, the baluster, was that 4x4 WWN?
Jeff, I'm interrupting you. Hold on 1 second. I didn't realize that we've already passed the hour here and we gotta move on to the after hour. So Jeff, hold on to those questions because I wasn't even keeping track of time because we're having so much fun. So Jeff, 1 second, we'll come back to you. Zach, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We're very excited to have Lois Arena join us next week for the Passive House Happy Hour. Many of you know that Lois is a powerhouse in Passive House and engineering and with lots of big projects. So she's got a surprise in store for us next week, and we'll see you there. So with that, Monty and Prudence.
Well, thank you, everyone. What a great presentation. I'm so excited about retrofits and all the new problems they create and finding ways to solve them. We didn't even go on obsessively about the reuse, not just recycle, but reuse foam insulation. So maybe we'll get to that in the after hour. Thank you again. Prudence?
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This is such an inspiring project for so many reasons. And yeah, I'm excited to just keep rolling on into the after hour. I have a bunch of questions too. So for those of you who need to jump and go have dinner, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you staying on, let's keep rolling.